Oh, right, because she doesn't have one for most of the story. You know what is coming. I think you know what is coming. However, I finished the TBR jar prompt. Hello lovely bookworms and welcome to a new wrap-up video. Today we are talking about the books that I finished in the month of September, and I'll share if I have completed all of my prompts for that month. I'm gonna go prompt to prompt and then we're gonna see if there are leftover books, how I've done. Spoiler alert, I did quite well in September, so really happy about that. Let's just go into book number 1 and I'll talk you through the books that I've read. So let's go. So for the first one, that was a book that I know nothing about, and I actually picked Cackle for that. I have to say that I did not finish Cackle, but in its place I read a book that was somewhere else on the list, and that is The Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. This is the first book, I think, in a series. However, the second book has never been released. This is about a woman who is, I think, given away or sold. No, she runs away. Her sister is sold to a guild. You have the Court of Miracles, which is below the surface of Paris in 1928, which is when this, I think, starts. This one spans a couple of years, and we follow Eponine, or Nina. I have to say that this book was not my favorite. I think I would have adored this were I a little bit younger and at the start of reading fantasy and YA. This book spans a couple of years and it's very unclear how old the main protagonist is. The cats are running around, I'm so sorry. I have to say that I really liked the idea of the Court of Miracles and the guilds, but the characters had nothing going for it. I didn't really care for the story, the side characters. There's no romance in here, which I don't mind, but there is sort of that forced romance of you should be with this person because he is a special snowflake. Our main protagonist is a special snowflake, which I don't mind, but in this particular story it felt a bit off. I don't know. I don't think this was my favorite read, and I think this is going to go on my unhaul pile, but we'll see that as we go. I definitely have to go through my books at some point and just get rid of some. So I think this is going to be on the chopping block for that. Also because of the fact that the second book, it's been years since it was announced, and it keeps on getting pushed back. And at some point, you just stop caring. I had the same with the Roar Rage series by, I think, Cora Carmack, which was great at the time, but I'm never going to read the final one because it's not out yet, and it's been years. I'm not going to wait for a second book in a series that didn't grip me in the first place, so this is, yeah, it wasn't what I expected it to be, but that's okay. Okay, so the second book was a wild card, so that is very easy to fill. For that, I at first said 5 Total Strangers. I've not read that book this month, but I did decide to pick up a reread for me. So I've decided to read 2 books, not 1 for this prompt, and those are my trusty dusty. You know what is coming. I think you know what is coming, because these are my all-time favorite, and that is The Wrath and the Dawn and The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Audier. I don't think I have to say that much about it because I think I've been the biggest advocate for this duology. I know it has its flaws, I know that it is not perfect, but I just love the story. So I'll talk a little bit about the first one, The Wrath and the Dawn. This is a retelling of 1001 Nights, and we follow Scheherazade as she offers herself up to be the next bride for the king. And this king has to kill all of his brides to lift a curse that's on the land, and that's the premise of this book. I love how lyrical these are. I love the characters. I think that the story is so strong. At this point when I read it, that was really the start of my fantasy reading journey. At least I think. It's definitely the young adult genre with this kind of book, but I still think that this is so special. This is where my love for Desert Vibe books started. This is where Desert-a-thon started, and I just read it about every single year at the least, if not more often. I love these, and I hadn't read them yet this year, so I decided to do that in the month of September. Not the most autumny book, but definitely, I think, well, it's one of my absolute favorites, and I'll never stop raving about it. I have 3 sets of these. I have the hard, like the paperback reading ones. I have the special edition, which is here, and then I also have these in hardcover, just these covers. So I think it is fairly certain to say that this is my all-time favorite duology. Is it the best that's ever been written? No, it just holds my heart. So next up I have my TBR jar, and for the TBR jar I had 2 books that I grabbed out of there, which was The Once and Future Witches and A River Enchanted. I am ashamed to say that I did not read A River Enchanted. However, I finished the TBR jar prompt, and I have read The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. This is about 3 sisters that find themselves in New Salem. I feel like this book does so much. I was scared of how big it was. I was right. This book does so much. There's so much in here. There's LGBTQ, there's a lesbian in here, there's abortion, there is childbirth, there's motherhood, there's the witchy side of this, there's the family, the bonding. There's so much that this book does, and I felt like I was a little bit overwhelmed. This is definitely, it feels like an urban fantasy, even though it is not it's a historical fantasy, I think, but it gives me that urban feel that I'm not particularly keen on in books. If I read a fantasy, I want it to be full-fledged fantasy, otherwise I would read a thriller or crime book. That said, I can definitely appreciate the book that this is, because it is so well written. All the plots morph together so beautifully, and for that I think I gave it 3 stars. Is this something that I would pick up again? No. I also have to say that I don't think I will pick up anything by the same author again, because I have read the 10,000 Doors of January, which I'm pretty sure is by the same author. Sorry, the doorbell rang. Cats are in the hallway now, so if you hear anything, sorry about that. As I was saying, I don't think I will pick up this author again. It is not my kind of writing style. It is good writing, just not my writing. So I gave this 3 stars. I do have to say that I'm proud of the fact that I've ticked off a book that's been on my TBR for so long. So that's nice, but yeah, it was not my all-time favorite. Prompt number 4 was a book with a long title, and I actually had The Court of Miracles there, but since I put that in a different spot, I had to pick another book. And for that, I picked one with a longer title, and that is Girls of Fate and Fury by Natasha Nagan. This is the 3rd book in the Girls of Paper and Fire series, and I should have read this earlier. I think the first book was strong. The second book gripped me because of a plot point that was made and something that happened at the end of the book that made me sob, which is more related to my experiences in real life than the book. And then this 3rd one was just, it dragged, and it also, the fact that it kept switching between the 2 girls, which makes sense, it just didn't help the pacing of the book. I felt like it was clean cut where we started, where we were going, what the ending would be, and it is one of those books that I would have adored were I younger. I should have picked this up a lot earlier than I did. I did not. That is my fault, not the book's fault. I think I gave this 3 stars. It was solid for a young adult, just not what I was hoping or expecting it to be. So 3 stars. Not the best, not the worst. I'm okay with this. Then we have the final book. And the final book was a wild card again, and for that I put on the list Two Twisted Crowns. And I am beyond pleased to say that I have finished Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillick. This duology, I loved the first book, but the second book was even better. I gave this 5 stars. I bawled my eyes out at the end of this book, like Femke had predicted me, and this is just incredible. I love the magic system that is in here. So you work with these Providence cards, and the start of the first book is that our main protagonist is helping runaways, and well, it's quite a political thing. I don't want to go into it that much because I want you to experience it, but it is dark, it is twisted, the magic system is good. Our main protagonist is able to sense these Providence cards, and she has a demon in her head, and just the way that that went from the first book to the second book and how they incorporated the side characters in the second book was just incredible. I love the way they ended the story. I had a feeling that it would end that way, but I was not disappointed at all, because I was still, I wouldn't say shocked, but I felt very fulfilled with this. That said, I I just loved it so much. I am definitely going to look into more books written by Rachel Gillick. They're one of my absolute favorites at this point. I think I will definitely be recommending this duology a lot more from now on, where I was very hesitant to pick it up, but it was so fulfilling, and this is a true 5-star to me, and I think one of my favorites this year, but we'll see at the end of the year if it makes the list. Spoiler alert, I think it will. So yeah, that is book number 5. Actually book number 6, because The Wrath and the Dawn, The Rose and the Dagger, but 6 books so far. So when I was done with all of my prompts, I still had a little bit of a chunk left of the month of September. So I decided to read on. I have also finished the novellas from the Wrath and the Dawn series, which I'm not going to include too much. I just enjoy them for the completion of that story whenever I read it. That said, I have finished 3 more complete books, and the first one is A Duet with the Siren Duke by Elise Kova, which I believe is the fourth book in the Married with Magic series. Yes. And in this one we follow Victoria as she makes a deal with the Siren Duke that in 5 years she'll be sold to them or belong to them, something along those lines. This book, where I loved a deal with the Elf King. I have a deal with the Elf King here. This was one of my absolute favorites. I loved this book. However, this one, it was fine. I felt like it was very much more fade to black. All of these cars driving through the street today. I don't live in a neighborhood that's very busy, but a lot of cars. I felt like this book just fell short. It was very fade to blacky when it comes to the romance. I didn't particularly like the characters. I didn't really like the side characters. The atmosphere was not what I wanted it to be. And in general, the ending was very dissatisfying to me. So I gave it 3 stars because I still enjoyed it. And hence why it wasn't a 2-star. But it's not my absolute favorite. So there's that. And then the final 2 books I read was a duology, so I'm gonna just mash those together. And those are Nectar of the Wicked and Wrath of the Damned by Ella Fields. This book follows our main protagonist, whose name I can't remember. Oh right, because she doesn't have one for most of the story. Yeah, let's call her Flea, because that's the nickname that she got from her, I wouldn't say adoptive mother, because she's definitely not a mother figure. I would say caretaker. And she, with this caretaker, lives for 21 years. And the only reason this caretaker took her in is because she wants to trade her back for her own daughter, who was stolen at birth. And at the beginning of the book, the caretaker is actually killed, and then she has to go to a house of lust, I think, and there she meets the king of fairy, or one of the kings in this kingdom, and that's where the story starts out. She's trying to search for who she is while also being attached to this king on paper, not necessarily physically and mentally and romantically wise, at least in the beginning. You know where this story is going. I preferred the first over the second book, but the first book was a 3-star and the second one was definitely a 2-star. From a certain point onwards in the book, especially when we went into the second book, it was just lackluster at best. It was so predictable. It was mostly smut without plot, and I don't mind smut if it is well placed within a story. I missed some of the depth of the side characters. I missed progress, and also in the second book our main protagonist is she's just a little whiny and a little bit annoying. I did enjoy the ending of the first book, which is why I gave it 3 stars and did continue with the second one. The second one was just predictable and a little bit dragged out. I think it would have been a lot better if the first one would have been longer and then just one standalone story with a bit more in depth about some of the characters. Then I would have definitely given it 4 stars. This was just 3 and 2 and not my all-time favorites. So those were the final books of the month. That said, those were all the books that I've read in September. I think I have my fantasy kickback. I do have to say that for the month of October, we have a little bit of a problem because Ghost of Yotai was released, which is a new game for the PlayStation 5. I own a PlayStation 5 and I've played the prequel called Ghost of Tsushima. I loved Ghost of Tsushima, 5-star game. And this so far, also 5-star game. I have spent 16 hours gaming since it was released last Thursday. So it is now Tuesday. Yeah. Anyway, that's going to be a problem for next month. We'll see in that wrap up. I hope you have enjoyed the books that I've talked about. If you have any recommendations for me, I'm always open to them. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to our channel and press the little bell icon so you can post notifications every single time that we post. And I hope to see you all in the next one. Bye!